If you want to be healthy and happy, go to Ellen Winden. Where could it be more pleasant to be so close to heaven? All around in happy green meadows, sunshine and shadow of woodland. Hold the wreath, hi, hold the wreath, oh, oh, how happy it is here. Let's go to the council ring, we'll cast our cares into the wind. Birds are singing, hearts are beating, one can't help but feel the joy. Mountains, valleys, lakes, and rivers, Switzerland and the horizon. Hold the wreath, high, hold the wreath, oh, oh, how happy it is here. Hold the wreath, high, hold the wreath, oh, oh, how happy it is here.
This is Theodore Wirth. He lived from 1860 to 1940.
I'm RT's best stand-in here. Whereas the 10th of January, 1906 marked the day that Theodore Wirth stepped off the train at the Milwaukee Road Depot and officially arrived in a snowy Minneapolis.
It was exactly 100 years ago that my grandfather, Theodore Wirth, got off the train in this depot and accepted the position as superintendent.
And whereas this day marked the day that Theodore Wirth's visionary eyes saw an idyllic garden city with a park system unequaled in the country instead of a frozen winter landscape.
Spent about a year negotiating because he was working back in Connecticut, and they wanted him because of his reputation, and he produced a lot of beautiful plans. He produced the Garden City.
And whereas this day marked the day that Theodore Wirth's first footprint in Minneapolis has left a lasting imprint on the quality of life for all Minneapolitans.
I think it's a wonderful thing that the Milwaukee Road Depot helped us with this event and that we are here in this place. We can imagine a cold, blustery January day when 42-year-old Theodore Wirth got off the train out in the shed and came to Minneapolis. A funny story involved in that is that they hadn't bothered to tell Wirth the deep financial problems that the park board was having. And so when he got off the train on that cold day, and Ridgway went over this with him on the way to the City Hall. It kind of stunned Wirth, and maybe if he'd have known that, he wouldn't have agreed to come. We don't really know. But anyway, when the reporters talked to Wirth at City Hall, he couldn't think of what to say. They wanted him to say what he thought of Minneapolis. He had just found out about this debt, and he really didn't quite know how to react. So he said that he thought the streetcars were lovely here and nice and clean. Well, the result of that was that that the streetcar magnates, Thomas Lowry and Calvin Goodrich, forever he could go to them and they'd give him money for whatever he needed for the parks. Because what got published was that his first impression was of the wonderful streetcars.
Now, therefore, I, R.T. Ryback, Mayor of the City of Minneapolis, do hereby proclaim January 10th, 2006 as the 100th anniversary of the start of our wonderful park system.
He wanted a park within every 6 blocks.
How lucky to be a child growing up in this city where the farthest you'd have to go to a park or park center is 4 to 6 blocks. How about the value of a ribbon of greenways around our city?
What they're doing is they're picking up the dirt so they could connect lakes, so people could go through down there. And right down here is ice boating on Lake Calhoun. And Theodore Wirth's son designed the Rose Garden at the White House.
Mr. Theodore Wirth spent the majority of his professional life in our city, and we can really never repay him the debt we owe him for being the architect of our park system. He is the visionary behind what we have today.
And my relatives also stepped off the train here as they came from the East Coast after immigrating from Sweden. And it feels very auspicious to be in this historic place today as we celebrate the history, the legacy that is our blessed and wonderful park system. I have the good fortune to do hard work each day on behalf of the future of our parks, and I'm thrilled that we are here today to honor the great history that has come before us.
This was a defining moment in Minneapolis history because when Wirth viewed the frozen winter landscape, his visionary eyes perceived instead an idyllic city. In his mind was a plan. He would transform Minneapolis into a beautiful place where healthy, happy children would grow and people would live in harmony with nature and with each other. Wirth began his long and illustrious Minneapolis career that very day, committing the rest of his life to his adopted city.
As a mom with 3 children, and I plan to live here the rest of my life, and my children will hopefully have their children here, I'm glad to be part of this ongoing legacy of our beautiful Minneapolis parks. So, Mr. Wirth, we owe you a debt of gratitude for your family's vision.
In his retirement, he wrote the story of the history of Minneapolis parks and how the early park builders, and especially him and his staff and his commissioners, built the rest of the system. This book is a rare book now, and Ted and I and the Society plan on getting this out before the end of the year, and we're gifting it to Minneapolis school libraries. We want the children of Minneapolis to have access to this history. The other thing we're working on, of course, still is the Theodore Wirth Home, which we hope to get open to the public so that we can give public tours and help children get to learn and know this history.
And Councilmember Johnson and I are going to work very hard to make sure that the Theodore Wirth House, as we've discussed today, becomes a historical interpretive center this year. We're done talking about it. We need to figure out how to make it a reality. We need to figure out how we can make this building become an integral and interactive part of our history.
I am a believer in the story of Minneapolis that is told all around our nation, that Minneapolis's greatest asset is our park system. What do parks mean to a community? They're a place of escape from congestion and cares that we encounter living in a city. For a short time, my husband and I lived in Amarillo, Texas. It was like the longest year and a half of my life. Amarillo was a city of 160,000 people. It had one park, and it was a central park in the downtown, and on the corner of the central park was a Carnegie Library. That was the extent of the park system for those folks that lived there. In the middle of our time there, we came back to Minneapolis for a wedding. A friend of ours was getting married, and we took a drive, and of course, where do you take a drive? You drive on the Grand Rounds. And I remember being between what probably wasn't 394 at the time, was probably Highway 12, but between that and Olson Highway, and looking out the window and thinking to myself, you know, this is just unbelievable. You feel like you're in northern Minnesota or Switzerland, where Mr. Wirth was from, and you get out on Olson Highway and you turn around and you can look and see the downtown buildings. It's an amazing thing.
Theodore Wirth's grandson, Ted Wirth, is here with me. Ted, can you stand up? I think without a doubt that your grandfather probably had more influence on the quality of life in Minneapolis than any other person in the city's history. I know that I always felt his legacy and continue to do so today. The next time we're in the city, we'll be sure to stop by and visit the memorial. That's from David Fisher, Superintendent Emeritus. The Milwaukee Road Depot has agreed to have a plaque that will commemorate his arrival, and so we're lucky about that. Theodore Wirth's genius is visible 100 years later in a vibrant Minneapolis. The abundance of parks and parkways woven through the city provide the fabric for a strong community. Sparkling lakes, magnificent vistas, beautiful gardens, and endless recreation opportunities reflect Wirth's devotion to all Minneapolitans.
On behalf of the entire Milwaukee Road Depot, we will be proud to display this plaque for everybody to enjoy. Thank you very much.
I'd like to read President of the Park Board's A.A. McRae's remarks about Mr. Wirth from the program of that dedication of this wonderful memorial in North Minneapolis. It's an amazing story. 30,000 people attended the groundbreaking for Victory Memorial Drive. Mr. McRae says in his remarks, "In this connection and on this rare occasion, I'm sure you will not consider out of place a word of recognition and an expression of gratitude to Mr. Theodore Wirth, our Superintendent of Parks. To Mr. Wirth is due unstinted credit for his vision. He will have constructed a lasting memorial to his own industry and artistic skill. This summer, I visited the Wirth House for a tour and saw the space used to create this remarkable system. To see the drafting tables, the copies of the master plans, and the beautiful views out the windows looking at the system he created was a thrill for me. It also reminded me of another quality, which I think I've observed in park design, that of the artist. The designer is really painting a picture in 3 dimensions of a beautiful space. We must use this fantastic history that we've been given to tell our story as a great city. We need to educate our children about the importance of this city in our state and in our nation. We can begin by honoring the architect of this most remarkable system of parks, Theodore Wirth. Thank you.